We are now about to begin the annual public meeting of the CFI, and I would invite Dr. Kevin Smith to come forward and table the annual report. Kevin.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. It's my pleasure, in my capacity as chair of the board, to table CFI's 2010-11 annual report at this annual public meeting. If I had one in my hand, I could slap it down on the table now. Jill will do that for me. À titre de président du conseil d'administration, j'ai le plaisir de déposer le rapport annuel à FCI dans le cadre de cette Assemblée publique annuelle. The Canada Foundation for Innovation is continuing to equip Canada's research institutions with state-of-the-art tools they need to attract and retain the best researchers in the world. CFI has played an instrumental role in moving Canada into a new era of cutting-edge research. Cutting-edge research is essential to a prosperous and competitive nation. But the CFI has evolved into something more. No, it's not just a funder, it's making its impact beyond the labs and research centers. Its investments have laid down a foundation of vital infrastructure that is creating opportunities for communities and commercial enterprise to engage with Canada's research community. I've seen in my own community of Hamilton, where bright minds at universities, colleges, research centers, and industry work together and share infrastructure to tackle common research challenges. I see research-intensive organizations collaborating with the private sector in lending their expertise and equipment to develop new or improved products and processes that meet the practical needs of business. I also see CFI's significant impact on local economies, whether through the construction of buildings, the manufacturing of specialized equipment, or the administration and management of CFI-funded projects. There are many cranes on the horizon across Canada thanks to CFI. The CFI is helping create high-quality, high-paying jobs right across our country. We also can't forget the impact of CFI on the next generation. Students are connecting with top researchers working in state-of-the-art labs with cutting-edge equipment. This kind of training gives them the skills they need to tackle real problems and serve and work in their communities. This is critical to the healthcare economy and Canada's economy in general. As chair of the CFI Board of Directors, I've experienced the Foundation's capacity to build stronger communities right across the country. In the year ahead, I look forward to working with members of the CFI, my fellow directors, and CFI's excellent management team, so capably led by Dr. Jill Patry, to help continue the organization's contributions to serving Canada and Canadians. Au cours de la prochaine année, j'ai hâte de poursuivre ma collaboration avec membres, mes collègues du Conseil et personnel de la haute direction de la FCI afin de continuer et contribuer à la prospérité du Canada et des Canadiens. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Votre Excellence, Monsieur le Président du Conseil d'administration, Mesdames, Messieurs les ambassadeurs, Mesdames, Messieurs les députés, distingués invités, Mesdames, Messieurs. Permettez-moi à mon tour de vous souhaiter à toutes et à tous la plus cordiale bienvenue à cette 14e édition de l'Assemblée publique annuelle de la Fondation canadienne pour l'innovation. I'm truly delighted that you were able to join us this morning so that we could share with you the highlights of fiscal year 2010-2011 at the Canada Foundation for Innovation. You know, when I joined the CFI in 2010, the Foundation had just signed a new funding agreement with the Government of Canada in connection with the $600 million allocated to the CFI in the 2009 federal budget. Following the signing of our new funding agreement, the CFI conducted cross-Canada consultations to assess how best to invest these funds. Et aujourd'hui, je suis heureux de vous annoncer que tous les programmes de notre nouvelle entente de financement sont en marche. D'abord, le concours du Fonds de l'avant-garde et du Fonds des initiatives nouvelles a été lancé en septembre 2011. Il s'agit d'un investissement de 200 millions de dollars. Les lettres d'intention seront soumises en janvier 2012, alors que les résultats de ce concours seront dévoilés à l'automne 2012. Deuxièmement, un montant de 182 millions de dollars a été réservé dans le cadre du Fonds des leaders. un programme conçu pour attirer les meilleurs chercheurs. Les premiers résultats de ce programme seront annoncés au printemps 2012. And our new funding agreement is allowing the CFI to address two new priorities facing Canada's research community: the funding for major science initiatives and funding that will foster stronger collaboration between colleges and industry. In fact, $185 million has been set aside to fund a portion of the operating costs of CFI's big science projects. These major science initiatives are large, unique, national facilities designed to address pressing scientific issues. The competition was launched earlier this year, and the proposals are currently under review. The results will be announced in March 2012. Finally, we all know how Canada's colleges play a central role in supporting business, private sector innovation in this country. And we believe that boosting their capacity to conduct applied research and technology development will help them attract industrial partners and expand their partnership opportunities. Accordingly, the first College Industry Innovation Fund competition was launched earlier this year. The results will be announced in March 2012. And as the chair of the board said earlier, it is important to remember that the challenge of building a more innovative economy is about more than a slab of concrete or a piece of equipment. It's about people. It's about supporting the best and the brightest by providing them the environment they need to conduct world-class research. It's about giving students the opportunity to work with the best in the world, using state-of-the-art equipment to push the frontiers of knowledge. The CFI is dedicated to meeting the evolving needs of this country's outstanding research institutions and talented researchers. We are confident that our new funding opportunities will inject new energy into Canada's research community to ensure it is superbly equipped to innovate and compete with the best in the world. Again, I thank you for joining us this morning, and I look forward to reporting back to you next year on what we will have accomplished. Thank you very much. Merci infiniment.
Son Excellence, distinguished guests, mon nom est Manon Harvey, je suis la vice-présidente finance et gestion à la Fondation canadienne pour l'innovation. And it's my pleasure to finally cover the real reason you're here this morning, that is the financial statements. I don't kid myself, I know I'm standing between you and the real reason why you're here today, so I will touch upon the highlights of that fiscal year we're covering with our financial statements, and that's the last business portion of our meeting today. So let me present to you the financial statements. Keep in mind that we're talking about the fiscal year 2010-11. That's April 1st, 2010, so we're talking about 19 months ago. And if you look at the last year's annual report, you'll see two different faces in the report. We have a new board, CFI chair of the board, Dr. Kevin Smith, and our new CEO, Gilles Patry. Our financial statements are covered in our annual report, and you can get a copy of that, and it's online, and they're found on pages 24 to 36. So the first thing I want to show you is the auditor's report. And what you look for is their opinion on the financial statements. And I'm happy to report again that we have what we call a clean opinion. If we did not, I would not be standing in front of you today. So this opinion states that we are basically presenting fairly the financial position of the CFI. And it's in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles. I just want to mention to you, in accordance with GAAP, you hear that a lot, It's the second last time you'll hear this because starting in 2012, most of organizations have to move to what we call IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards. For the CFI, the standards we're adopting are the ones for the government, not-for-profit organizations, and we'll be adopting the CICA Public Sector Accounting Handbook. And for those of you who might care, we're also going to include the Section 4200. I'll spare you the details. On one of the statements in our report, there's the balance sheet. And what's of interest there is the investment line. It's a big number. As at March 31, 2011, it was in the amount of $1.7 billion. We've been receiving funds from government, which we've invested very carefully. It's in high-grade financial instruments, mostly bonds and mortgage-backed securities. Aucune action de compagnie ou d'équité, alors des investissements vraiment sécures. As you notice, the values decrease from the prior year. It's because we're disbursing more towards the projects that have been approved by our board, and as the projects mature in greater numbers. Our portfolio generated $49.5 million of interest in that year, compared to $57.3 the year before. Next, the statement of operations, and there's a couple lines there that I would like to point out. The first one is grants to eligible recipients. We've disbursed $460 million in that year towards project, compared to $379 last year, so the disbursements are speeding up. In terms of our running the operation, the general and administration expense combined with the amortization amounted to $2.5 million compared to $13 the year before. And last but not least, in the financial statements, there are notes that will explain more of the numbers that you see in those statements. And I would like to point out a couple of the notes, one being note 5, where we talk about deferred contributions. In that one, we mentioned that the government of Canada has committed $4.99 billion since 1997. And as at March 31, 2011, we'd received $4.09 billion of that money. The remaining amounts are going to flow to us as our cash flow require it. During the fiscal year 2010-11, we've received from government $203 million. Last note I want to point out to you is the one having to do with commitments. The first one deals with the grants that were awarded. Our board of directors, following a very intense merit review by experts throughout the world, review applications and approve them. In that fiscal year 2010-11, $98.6 million was approved by our board, and for a cumulative of $5,414 million. And given our funding formula, where we fund 40% of the capital cost, it means that we've leveraged over $12 billion over the years. The last component of the commitments has to do with disbursements to institutions, where in that fiscal year, as I mentioned before, we've disbursed $460 million, a cumulative of 3.78, and we've injected cash of $8.4 billion in the economy as at March 31, 2011. So, having said that, there are a lot more notes in those financial statements that might be of interest to you. I would welcome you to have a look at our annual report. It's in paper copy and online. And on that, we would welcome any questions you might have about the business portion of the annual public meeting at this point. David Fung, one of our members.
I want to congratulate the board of directors and also the management staff for having changed the picture of Canada in terms of research and development and innovation. Through this program, we know for now that we have reversed the brain drain. And I think as a public, we want to congratulate for the work that you have done for us. But I would also like us to ask that as part of the private sector, that this program has done enormously great work for the infrastructure of research and development. But we also understand that Canada is facing a major innovation and productivity gap. And I understand that with the new strategic plan of CFI, that we are going to address some of these issues on how CFI will make an impact on innovation in Canada. So I wonder if you or the president or the chairman could give us a quick outline on how CFI's new direction will actually produce measurable benefits that Canadians can see and become more visible to the general public and how the tax dollars has been spent.
Sure. I think Jill can address that question.
Thank you very much, David. You raise a point that obviously is a point of discussion at CFI on a regular basis, and that's how can CFI, in addition to investing in research infrastructure to support universities, to make sure that we develop world-class talent, that we develop world-class research, that we also foster world-class innovation. And we've been reflecting, CFI has been in a reflective mood for the past year and a half or so. In essence, we've done, in 2009, 2010, there were consultations across the country as to how CFI programs could best be adjusted. And in the last year, I didn't report on this today because, in effect, we're reporting on the 2010-2011 year. But this year, we've updated our strategic plan, and we've called this our strategic roadmap for the future. And we will try to articulate more effectively the investments that CFI is making in order to foster more directly business innovation. It doesn't mean that we're shifting completely away from the basic research component, but we're asking the question, how can CFI investments, how can the infrastructure that we are supporting be used more effectively to foster innovation, to foster this collaboration between the private sector and universities. And so you'll see some new initiatives. The board has reflected on this, in fact, last week, a couple of weeks ago, and we're looking at more effectively bringing industry, university, college funds, industry innovation funds, essentially. And you'll see this as part of our strategy that we will be proposing to the Government of Canada in order to foster this greater collaboration between the private sector and universities. It is a challenge in every country in the world. I think that now we see in Canada that the investments that have been made across the country, universities, research hospital, colleges now have access to world-class facilities, really world-class facilities. And so bringing in the private sector to make effective use of those facilities to address pressing issues, I think is the next step for us to move into. So we will be focusing directly on those aspects of our mission to try to ensure that we more effectively address the innovation agenda.